Welcome to Reality NSFW. This evening, I am joined by Dan Montchal because Alex Trias and Johnny Fairplay are, I don't even know where they're at. They're at one of Johnny's 5 million viewing parties he's done this season.
I know they're at a brewery in Jersey.
Okay, yes.
That's about it.
There's, Bryce Isaiah and Zane Knight and I think Billy Garcia are all there. So Johnny has been doing many viewing parties this season, and if you all have never been to a Survivor viewing party, especially with Survivor fans and cast members, there's nothing like it. I remember when I was on Survivor Caramoan and Roger Bingham showed up to my viewing party that I had, and I was like, oh my god, dude. And the fans loved it, and I loved it because I'm a fan of Survivor. So it's such a cool experience. So the experience that Johnny gives to people through the Reality NSFW live shows, or if you're somewhere else and Bryce and Wendell have been doing stuff, and I know Rob Cease does stuff, it's always a blast. But this season has flown by. I can't believe that next week is the finale. So my hometown, Cincinnati, Ohio, the Survivor finale is next week, and it starts at 7 p.m. at Pinball Garage in Hamilton, Ohio, which is outskirts of Cincinnati. And Pinball Garage is like a barcade with tons of pinball machines. This is a free event. This is not going to cost you any money. I will be there. Johnny Fairplay will be there. Marcus Lehman will be there, possibly other local survivors, and a lot of Survivor fans. You can win Survivor buffs. Johnny always does trivia, and it is a great time. So if you don't have plans, mark your calendars for next week. The Survivor 42 finale party with myself and Johnny Fairplay, Pinball Garage, 7 p.m., free event. Spread it on your social media. I would love to see you there. I always love seeing the fans. And like Angela Perkins from Ghost Island, she's from Cincinnati. She might be there. So yeah, we're going to have a great time. But for those that missed Johnny on the podcast, I know there's been some, why isn't Johnny ever on the podcast? It's because he is giving the live experience, and either Alex and myself are holding it down, and tonight Dan and I are holding it down for another awesome episode. Dan, I know we talked a little bit before we went live, and I always kind of say how season 41 was just subpar to me. I liked the cast, but it just kind of didn't come across. I don't know. It was weird to me. I didn't like some of the twists and stuff, and I was a little bit concerned for season 42 based on what we saw in season 41, because we know they filmed them back to back. But this has turned out to be a totally different season than season 41.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know there's, going to be a lot of people that are upset that Omar is the one who went home because everyone was saying he's the best player left, and I think a lot of people were rooting for him. But honestly, I think it's just going to make the finale that much more exciting, because it isn't just, well, if Omar's at the end, he's definitely going to win. I think it adds a lot more going into the finale that it's unpredictable. I mean, at this point, I think it's really a toss-up of who could potentially win the game.
Yeah, and I was talking to my family after this because my wife was like clapping. She loved how Marianne pulled this vote off tonight, convincing Mike and Jonathan of her plan, because the beauty of Survivor is like, it sucks when things are so obvious that you're just like, okay, this episode, this is who's going home and stuff like that. And the thing is, it's like, yes, I know Omar's a great Survivor player. He's very smart. But the beauty of Survivor is there's a lot of strategy, obviously, but there's also a shitload of luck in Survivor. I don't care what anyone tells you. Winning Survivor is you got to have a lot of good luck. The stars have to align. And I tell you what, with the exception of Romeo, who I think personally, he doesn't do anything for me. Like, I hope he doesn't win, but if Jonathan wins, I'm fine with it. If Lindsay wins, well deserved. If Mike wins, I think Mike's the most likable player this season. And if Marianne wins, props to you for having a fucking good time this entire season, laughing. You're entertaining in the challenges and watching you,
Mhm.
and not underestimating Mary Ann's strategic gameplay, because she realizes, look, I have to, if I have to go up against a jury, I have to convince people why I deserve to win the money. And I think tonight is a perfect example of how Mary Ann could possibly beat others in the end. I mean, do you have any thoughts on that? Do you think that's even a possibility?
No, I think she has a shot at winning the game. At this point, I don't know if I'd say that she's the front runner, because I really don't think at this point in time there is a front runner. I think it could
Right.
be multiple different people, but I think that's a big kind of feather in your cap when you're like, Ulmer was clearly the biggest threat, and I'm the one that got him out. So if you're trying to speak to the jury at the end, where it was, I mean, you even see him at the end of the episode, like, was that you? And she goes, yeah, like I did it. I
Mm-hmm.
think that's a big plus on her resume. And especially at this point, I mean, you mentioned how you're not that big of a fan of Romeo. I don't see how he isn't sitting at the end, just like, drug along as that third place 0 vote finalist.
Mm-hmm.
So if she's there with, she only really needs to battle it out with one other person if it ends up playing out that way. And I think she very well could do it.
Yeah, honestly, if Mary Ann is in a final three with Jonathan and Romeo, I think Mary Ann wins, because I don't think Jonathan has the strategic resume, like I made these big moves in
Yeah.
comparison. I think that if she's up against Lindsay and Mike, oh man, that's going to be a tough one. I think that would be kind of a really close race. Now, I do want to ask you, Jonathan, who obviously is Lindsay's number one competitor as far as winning an immunity challenge, how is Jonathan still in the game right now? Like, I would just kind of like, doesn't this seem like a wise time to get him out so that immunity challenges going forward, that other people have a chance? Or do you have a opinion on that?
No, I mean, I think everyone's pretty much thought it the entire season that, oh, incredible in these pre-merge challenges, but he'll be gone right away once it comes to the merge.
Mhm.
And, surprisingly, he's still around. What, he's won 2. The only thing I can think of is just maybe he's not really respected, like obviously by the other players there. Obviously, it's a roadblock if he's constantly safe, which, he isn't. But I think it says a lot, specifically in this cast, because I mean, we've seen other challenge beasts. I mean, you had like the Brad Culpeppers or the Aussies, people that have won their way to the end and they don't win. I mean, there's a few examples like with Mike, but I think it's hard to win your way to the end and win the game as it is. And I think with the way that this cast is set up, where I know you and Johnny have talked about that it's, a weaker cast physically, I just don't think that that's a game that they're necessarily going to respect and vote for.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So essentially, he's still in the game because they would rather get out someone who's a strategic player threat wise, because, hey, let Jonathan make it to the final three with all of us. And we feel confident that we can beat him based off of our gameplay, because, yeah, you being an insane challenge beast is really, no one really seems to care that much, which is crazy. Like, that's what makes Survivor beautiful, and I think that's why Survivor has been on for so many seasons. And when Jeff, breaks the fourth wall and addresses the audience at home and says, "You could play Survivor," in a commercial, like, "Go to Survivor casting and apply now." The cool thing about Survivor is, if you're a young athletic kid that loves sports and the challenges and stuff, that might be what makes you attracted to watching this TV show. If
Mhm.
you are a nerd that feels like you suck at things, but you want to get out of your shell and play this game, there's those type of people, right? There's so many different types of Survivor players that the general public watching can relate to. And with the new diversity of casting, I think it just makes that even a bigger thing. And that's why to me Survivor's on 42 seasons, and you know, who knows when the end of Survivor will be. Now I do think that, you know, it's a little bit overboard with some of the twists and things that Jeff kind of meddles with,
Mhm.
in comparison, let's say, to older seasons of Survivor that tick a lot of people off. But overall, um, I think they're doing a good job, especially this season. Of it's not just Mactors, it's normal everyday people, and that's someone we can all relate to. Now, with some of the finalists, Dan, if you were to play Survivor, is there anyone that you identify with, like, wow, like I feel like I would be playing that way out of the people left?
Of the people that are left,
Yeah. Or just in general this season, if there's a player that you've, you know, like, wow, I really see myself if I were to play. Because there's a lot of Survivor fans listening to the
yeah.
podcast, obviously, you know?
So if I had to pick someone from this season, I think someone who I would have been somewhat comparable to probably would have been closer to like a high. I
Yeah.
think that's the best comparison I have for this cast. I think,
Mm-hmm.
there's better examples from past
Right.
seasons, but I think with this one, high would probably be the closest person to
Yeah.
what I would at least envision myself playing like out there.
And so High, you know, we see him out of the game. Now Omer, who is you know, pretty much in the Survivor world, was one of the smartest players, and I'm sure a lot of people are bummed out that he is gone. However, props to being able to get him out in a blindside type of way, and I think Omer respects, just like um who got excited a couple weeks ago when they got voted out? They're like,
Drea,
God, great. Who?
what
Oh,
you
not
talking
Dre,
about,
was
Drea?
a High was
Oh, it's
excited.
high who was excited when he
Yeah,
got voted out.
just
Yeah.
like, oh my God, if I'm going to go out, like get in a blind side. So the respect for the game, I think, is very high this season. So yeah, it's episode 12. We have one episode left, which is next week is the finale. So tonight, this episode starts out. Lindsay is in a good spot. You know, we know Lindsay has this amulet that is now an idol now that Drea's gone. And this is something that, you know, she going this deep into the game to have an idol is a plus. And I think Lindsay, if she plays her cards right, which I think she had a little bit of a kind of shot at her game sort of this week. Last week, I thought Lindsay's winning this game, and I still love Lindsay. I think she's a badass, but I do think she made a major mistake tonight. Um,
Yeah, I didn't quite understand the reasoning because I get that, all right, an idol's played and it typically goes back, into cycle. But this wasn't really an idol. Like, yes, it had turned into one, but it wasn't like a standard hidden immunity idol. And if you're so lockstep with Omer that, okay, he's the person that I'm going to continue to ride this game out with, and it's the last time you can possibly play it, why not play it for him just to be safe? That way, you have your number one, you're both in the final five, instead of there's no point in holding on to it.
I agree. I think at this point, you roll the dice. It's like you said, it's not like she found it in a tree and knows it's like the normal idol. And who's to say that someone is going to fight, even if it goes back into play, just keep an eye on everybody. Like,
Yeah.
if you're that worried about it, just be like, hey, Omer, you and I, anyone that goes anywhere, keep an eye on them because we need to make sure no one, you know, finds this idol and screws us over. Yeah, that to me was probably $1 million mistake unless she, you know, somehow pulls out, I don't know, another immunity win and stuff like that. But I think that, man, that was a bad move. I 100% agree with you.
Yeah, especially because not everyone really knows about the amulet. So you'd think that, especially what Jeff likes to harp on is, building your resume and everything like that. If you have, the shiny toy, don't you want to be able to show it off to the jury in some way?
Mm-hmm.
And
I
if you're
know.
still there and you're saving Omer. And so even if it's okay, the other three are out to get you or whatever, everyone was talking about when they got back or whatever that, oh, this was a brilliant play by Omer. So he's still the biggest target there, which
Mm-hmm.
means that even if, they were to go after the two of them, she's
Yeah.
in the final four.
Yep. Yep. Yeah. Bad move. So after at the beginning of the episode again, Omer, he's excited that his plan went well. He gives the idol back to Mike, and which I wasn't sure if he was going to actually do that or not. But Mike has the idol, and right now the plan is to kind of pull Jonathan and Michael apart from one another, and Mike knows that like Omar is kind of afraid, and Mike needs to cut Omar loose. Like he can't. Mike at least knows. I know Mike's trying to play this loyal game, but Mike is good at reading people. I think he can see who's nervous, and I don't know. Mike's one of my favorites this season. I think that if Mike, since he's so likable, if he makes it to the end, I think he's quite possibly could win. However, like, do you really want to take Mike to the end with you?
Yeah. So I have two questions for you.
Yes.
So first off, does Matt Bischoff give the idol back?
Probably because if this was my first time playing, I would probably give the idol back just because I would be like trying to, keep that person's trust, and play the honest game right here.
And then to your point with Mike, I love Mike. I hope he does well. I mean, he's definitely one of the people that's left that I'm rooting for.
Yep.
My only concern with him is that the entire time he's kind of been like, oh, I'm a stand-up guy, my word is my bond, and he keeps voting out, everyone.
Right.
I'm afraid that he's almost going to have like a coach final tribal where it's just, obviously it's different because coach in South Pacific was all about religion, where it's just like, don't say that you're this honorable guy, like own what you did. And that's my only worry with him. If he's going to go in and be like, oh, me, like, my word is my bond.
Yeah. Like I'm the firefighter guy. I've been trustworthy this entire game. Like, yeah, I hear you. Yeah. I mean, I'm also a big Mike fan. Regardless if Mike wins or he doesn't, I think Mike has definitely been well edited, and he could easily come back to play. Like if they ask people back, I think that's someone that they would ask back to play again.
Yeah, I mean, you could say that Mike was the best social player this
Yeah.
season.
Oh
Like
yeah.
maybe all not about the strategy, but who doesn't like Mike? Everyone loves him. Like he's just found that way to connect with every single person out there, it seems like.
Oh yeah, totally. So we see Marianne, she knows that she cannot beat Omer, and she's early on in this episode really trying to pitch her case of why they should vote out Omer. And she ends up telling Mike that she has the extra vote. So I think that sometimes you want to keep things to yourself, but I think in this situation when Marianne and she ends up telling Mike about the extra vote, and then Mike knows, hey, I have an idol, and maybe if you use your votes, we can use my idol and get farther into the game. I think that at some point you have to kind of use, if you have these advantages, to your benefit in like a strategic gameplay kind of role. It's just something else in your back pocket that you can use as ammunition. Maybe it's to make someone nervous. But I think so Mike knows she has this extra vote. And
Yeah.
So
especially because they're like, this is the last tribal that she can play it. So why not put all of her cards on the table? Be like, I have this extra vote. I have to play it this tribal. So it's not like, oh, it's looming, the longer, it stays in, she has this extra vote. Like, it has to be played here. It makes no sense to not play it. So I think that it's a great time to leverage it.
So do you think that the game being 26 days and not 39 days has changed the dynamic of people's gameplay?
I think it has. I think it's sped them up where they're trying to move a lot faster.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like with the way that they've changed in casting as well, where, it's more the super fans and people that know the game really well.
Mm-hmm.
I think you put that into a shorter game and them always feeling like they have to make a move. I
Yeah.
mean, I'm sure that there's some days where it's just mass chaos around camp.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I agree with that. I think I kind of like, oh man, the 39 days, it's how are they, straying away from that? But it is. I believe like the game is kind of um showcasing how quickly the gameplay is. And even these episodes, it's like there's not a lot of time wasted on stuff that's really not a part of the gameplay. Now, I wish we did have a little bit longer episodes where we could get a little more, I don't know. Australian Survivor shows a lot more camp life, and it might show, I don't know. You know what I'm saying? Like this is like to the point. Even tonight, and like at the reward, it was like barely any footage of the actual reward, but because it's like such a fast paced thing, they're trying to fit a lot in these episodes. So it's day 22. Um, Marianne tells Omer and Romeo and Lindsay that Mike is paranoid. So um, Mike throwing kind of this out there to when you're kind of deflecting things and saying, "Hey, this person's paranoid," or "This person's this." This is again Marianne kind of I don't know, just these little things that she's doing is to me putting little check marks on her resume.
Yeah, I think she's a lot more in control of her game than what people realize because of just her personality, that she's so outgoing and, maybe louder and just really enjoying herself. I
Mhm.
think all that takes away from these small moments that we get to see it, but I don't necessarily think that they're all putting it together out there on the island.
Yeah, so do you think that they even see like a strategic game player at all, or do you think they just think, "Oh, that's loudmouth Marianne that laughs and smiles and you know uh, just has a good time 24/7?"
Yeah, I don't think now, hopefully moving forward, they see it because, she got her way with this vote.
Yes.
But going up to it, I don't think they did because, I mean, yes, it was, that Taku 4, they were all together, but she was always the person's like, well, if we have to get rid of someone, there's Marianne. And she
Mhm.
was always just an afterthought. And I think it probably took a move like this for maybe people to take her more seriously.
Yeah, and I think honestly that Omer is going to go back to Ponderosa and tell the jury, like, "Hey, hi, Andrea, like Marianne fucking really got me." And
Mhm.
I think Omer and some of these players that really respect gameplay are going to respect someone like Marianne's game a hell of a lot more than someone like Jonathan's game or Romeo's game. So I think
Mhm.
Omer is going to have a really big impact, like when everyone's just sitting around Ponderosa, like chatting about, like, "Oh, tonight's tribal, everybody. Wow, that was crazy." And Omer's going to be like, "Yeah, don't underestimate Marianne." So I think that to the jury, someone like Omer's who got blindsided is not going to be all butthurt about it. He's going to have respect, I think, for Marianne. Um,
Yeah,
so
I agree.
obviously, Lindsay wants Jonathan out, and then Jonathan does not trust Lindsay or Omer. I mean, he shouldn't. At least, I know Johnny rags on Jonathan a lot, but I think Jonathan, even though we don't see him edited as some crazy strategic player, I still think he's thinking about the game and not just some dumb jock. Like, I like watching Jonathan,
Mhm.
and he at least is like smart enough to be like, "Man, I don't trust what's going on here." Um, and I know and Jonathan doesn't trust Omer. either. Do you think that the cast as a whole likes Jonathan as a person? Because I
I
know there's
think
been kind of discussion on this podcast about it. I like my kids love watching Jonathan. I'm just wondering what the cast feels about a player like him.
I don't think the cast dislikes him. Now maybe there's more information out there that shows that they don't. I don't think that they dislike him. I just don't think that any of them are really, like I want to reach out to, my survivor family. I don't think that he's in that group of people that you remain super close with, through the rest of your life. Like obviously you go through this experience. I mean, you can speak about this better than I can because you were out there. You have that bonding experience. It's something that only, for your season was the 20 of you that went through this specific season.
Yeah.
But I don't think he's super close with anyone would be my read on it.
Yeah, it'll be interesting because, like I said, I like Jonathan. It's interesting because you would think that he would be like a badass in challenges, but he was a badass in the group tribe challenges. But we've seen sometimes size is not everything in a challenge, as we kind of saw tonight, and we saw when Lindsay won immunity last week. It's like sometimes like your feet and being a bigger person is a disadvantage in some of these challenges. So we go to the reward challenge. You have to kind of spin around to unspool some rope. Then you got to go across some balance beams while you're dizzy to find some keys. And then the reward is for sustenance like chicken or decadence like chocolate and cookies. And but once you get these keys, there is this. Explain kind of the last part of the challenge.
Yeah, so we'll starting out with you have another great Marianne moment right out of the gate as she's spinning, to unspool and just going everywhere. Yeah, you do that, and then you have to go across the balance beam, untie the keys, and that gets you to the puzzle. And we've seen a similar puzzle like this before, where it's essentially like a compass rose. And there's some sides that are like a block, others that are longer, and only that have painting showing the compass on one side. So it's just a more difficult 3D puzzle.
Now, do you think you would have trouble with this? Because to me, looking at this puzzle, when it comes to puzzles, I'd like, man, to me, since there's circular patterns, like it doesn't seem that hard, but it seems like it may be harder than we might have thought as viewers, because, some people were having a lot of trouble with the puzzle. Like this is overall kind of an easy challenge, sort of. Like once you get undizzy, it's like it's not that crazy. I think it's funny when Marianne tries to like unspin the other way. Think of that. If she's dizzy, but if she spins the other way, it's going to make her undizzy. And Probst is like, I've never seen anything like that. That was pretty fucking funny. Jonathan is the first to cross. So I'm thinking, oh shit, he's got a good chance. He's got a lead. But in comes Omer. And once Omer got on the puzzle and I saw like Marianne, I saw some pieces missing and shit. I was like, dude, Omer is pretty much, in my opinion, the smartest person for a puzzle visual challenge like this. I'm like, this guy's going to win this. And he does. And this is where Jeff breaks the fourth wall. And I do love this moment here. Sometimes shit annoys me when Jeff addresses the crowd. However, Omer calls out his, 8-year-old niece and, says, I want to show her that anyone can do this. And then Jeff looks at looks right at the viewer and is just like, hey, look, you can do anything. It's just a positive kind of thing. There's so much negativity going on in the world. And we see the news every day with just shit that sucks. So I don't know. I like moments like these, like a feel good moment, and just showing the viewer like, hey, look, one day maybe you can play Survivor too. And we've even seen last year, I think with JD was his name, was a young kid watching Survivor, watching Ozzy and Malcolm, and then he got to play Survivor. So it is cool that there's a new generation like my kids or Fair Play's kids or any younger like teenager is watching this, and I think that kids are growing up in a different kind of world than like what I grew up in. So I think Survivor and all of reality TV game style shows are going to be different. We're not going to get the same Survivor we got in season 20 as we are now. Is that a good thing, a bad thing? I don't know. But I'm hoping that CBS can kind of take some of the shit that's annoying in these newer seasons and kind of modify that. But I think overall casting is doing a good job with putting together a great cast and just let them play the fucking game. So basically, if Omer picks the sustenance, which is the chicken and the normal food, he gets to pick 2 other players to go with him. If he picks the chocolate and the cookies, he gets to pick 3. So he ends up picking 3, which I think that's the best move. He picks Romeo, who's skinny and hasn't eaten much, although last week we saw him sneaking eating rice all the time. So he really kind of is eating. Picks Marianne. She's ecstatic about going. And picks Mike because, hey, his strategy is I don't want Jonathan to have a big boost of sugar and energy going into the immunity challenge. And do you think this was the best group of people to pick for this?
I think it was the best group of people. Part of me just wondered, because I understand, the thought of I can bring one more person, but all that sugar and sweets when you haven't had any food, I just can't imagine what it was like after. Because and this is a way lesser version, but I've been trying to get in better shape, coming up for the summer and everything like that. So I've been eating healthy. And then like last week was like my birthday. And so I had wings, I had some sweets or whatever. And this is me often having a normal diet.
Yeah.
And my stomach was destroyed for the rest of the night. So I can't imagine what it would be like just housing all this chocolate cake and then what their next 4 hours were like.
Yeah, shitty. Honestly, I mean, before I went out on Survivor, I stopped drinking like caffeine and shit, so I didn't get like a bad caffeine withdrawal, like headaches and shit. I think eating all that chocolate, oh God, like that's a major caffeine, rush and sugar. I think people are gonna have some massive headaches and feel like total shit because all they're eating is like coconuts and some shitty ass water from the well and rice. So I think eating like something like chicken would have been better, but I understand that his whole point was less about the food and more about taking 3 people with him. And so he leaves Lindsay and Jonathan behind at camp, which Jonathan back at camp is so tired because he's such a big guy that he just needs to like chill out and rest. And with this reward, again, this is a fast-paced episode because we saw a little bit of strategy at the reward, but not a ton. It was like usually there's a lot more to like hanging out at the reward. I don't know if it was like boring as shit and they're like producers are like, we got nothing here. But you know what I'm saying? There really was. They ate some cake, talked for a little bit, and then they showed the other camp with Lindsay and Jonathan talking.
Yeah, you'd think that there'd have to be more going on there, especially, they're getting all the sugar, the caffeine and all that. And you think it'd almost be like you get that sugar high that none of them have probably experienced in years, probably since they were a child.
Right.
So you think that maybe it would not be the most poignant conversation ever, but you think that you'd have a lot more activity and conversations happening there, which who knows if any of that was good for TV or not.
Yeah, totally. I'm like, man, this is the shortest reward ever. Well, Lindsay tells Mike about her idol, and this is the likable Mike social game. People feel comfortable around Mike, so Lindsay's like telling him about the idol, and then Mike tells Jonathan about Lindsay's idol. Could she give it to Omer if she wins immunity? This was spoken about. So these scenarios, you have to always be thinking about, okay, she has this idol. If she wins immunity, what happens then? So this is such a more fast-paced game. Like, you constantly have to be thinking about scenarios.
Yeah, it seems like the other side thought way more about using the idol than Lindsay and Omer did from what we saw.
I know, it's crazy because we see Mike talking to Marianne. This is where he's like, hey, you could use your extra votes, and then in trade, we could use Mike's idol to kind of save them in a potential scenario. But Marianne has her idol too. So there's a lot of idols and a lot of moving parts going on. It's like the fact that Lindsay has this amulet turned into an idol that she can only play tonight. To me, I was like, oh my God, this could be like a super crazy thing to say, save someone. You have a potential, if you win immunity, then you got double idols. But yeah, it's kind of shocking that stuff never really got into play tonight.
Yeah, and obviously they don't know about Marianne's idol, which I think would change everything, because then it's like, well, they can't put the idol back in circulation because then there'd be 3 and someone would win immunity. So like you're just automatically screwing someone right off the bat. So I'll give them the benefit of the doubt that they don't know that part of it.
Right.
I mean, we've already spoken about it, and I'm sure we'll talk about it more. I just don't understand why this is such a big vote to get down to the final 5. It's the last time you can play it. Like, why not go for it?
I know. Well, right before the immunity challenge, we're going to get a quick word from our sponsors, and we'll be right back to talk the last half of the show. We will be right back.
We're all trying to eat better, but healthy breakfast doesn't have to be boring. Magic Spoon has the amazing flavors you love, but without all the bad stuff. And it's amazing as a midnight snack right before bed.
0 grams of sugar, 13 to 14 grams of protein, and only 4 net grams of carbs in each serving. That's only 140 calories per serving.
It's keto-friendly, gluten-free, grain-free, soy-free, and low-carb. And build your own box. Available flavors to build your very own custom bundle are cocoa, fruity, frosted, peanut butter, blueberry, cinnamon, cookies and cream, and my favorite, maple waffle. Now, Magic Spoon recently brought back their 2 super popular flavors, cookies and cream and maple waffle. Thank goodness, but they're back permanently. And when these flavors were first introduced for a limited time, they sold out extremely quickly. Now, I'm here to let you know you can get them again or try them for the first time. Why? Because they're delicious and indulgent.
Johnny, Magic Spoon has so many great flavors that I really enjoy, and even my kids enjoy them. We have the cocoa, fruity frosted, peanut butter. All these are really great combinations. They enjoy waking up in the morning and getting some Magic Spoon right off to start their day great before they head off to school. I think everybody listening should give Magic Spoon a try, or if you've tried them already, it's time to reorder. Let's get you some more Magic Spoon and get your day started right.
Hey, when I finish a podcast late at night, the first thing I'm thinking is not sleep. It's let me grab a delicious bowl of Magic Spoon before I go to bed.
So go to magicspoon.com/survivor to grab a custom bundle of cereal and try it today. And be sure to use our promo code survivor at checkout to save $5 off your order. And Magic Spoon is so confident in their product, it's backed with a 100% happiness guarantee. So if you don't like it for any reason, they'll refund your money, no questions asked. Remember to get your next delicious bowl of guilt-free cereal at magicspoon.com/survivor and use the code SURVIVOR to save $5 off. Thank you, Magic Spoon, for sponsoring this podcast.
Thanks for sticking with us through the ad break. Don't forget, for more exclusive Reality NSFW content, visit adfreeNSFW.com.
This episode of Reality NSFW is sponsored by Blue Chew. Say it with us, Blue Chew. Blue Chew is making waves and bringing more confidence to the bedroom by offering chewable tablets that can help men get stronger and longer lasting erections. That's right, we're giving away super hard dicks.
Blue Chew is a unique online service that delivers the same active ingredients as Viagra and Cialis, but in chewable form and at a fraction of the cost. Blue Chew's tablets help men achieve harder, stronger erections to combat all forms of ED.
Blue Chew is an online prescription service, so no visits to the doctor offices, no awkward conversations, and no waiting in line at the pharmacy. And it ships right to your door in a discreet package. The process is simple. Sign up at bluechew.com, consult with one of their licensed medical providers, and once you're approved, you'll receive your prescription within days. And the best part, it's all done online.
Blue Chew's licensed medical providers work with you to find the right ingredient and strength for your prescription. Don't like swallowing pills? No problem here. Blue Chew's sildenafil and tadalafil tablets are chewable. Blue Chew's tablets are made in the USA and they prepare and ship direct, so it's cheaper than a pharmacy.
Hey, if you're looking to give that immunity idol to someone, or you don't want to be voted out of a crater, don't worry, Blue Chew's got you covered. So if you could benefit from extra confidence when it's time to perform, visit bluechew.com for more details and important safety information.
And we've got a special deal for our listeners. Try Blue Chew free when you use promo code SURVIVOR at checkout. Just pay $5 shipping. That's Blue Chew, BLUECHEW.com, promo code SURVIVOR to receive your first month free. And we thank Blue Chew for sponsoring the podcast.
We are back. Johnny Fairplay is somewhere in Jersey, probably ate a Blue Chew, probably walking around the bar with, I guess he calls it a super hard dick. I don't know, but Johnny's the king of Blue Chews. But yeah, he's at a viewing party tonight. Billy Garcia, Bryce Isaiah, Zane Knight. And if you love Survivor viewing parties, my hometown, Cincinnati, Ohio, next week, it's Pinball Garage. It's a free event, starts at 7 p.m. It's always a great time. It is free. Johnny Fairplay and myself, tons of fans will be there. It's at Pinball Garage, Hamilton, Ohio. So when you look at like Cincinnati, it's just a little outskirts. So local Cincinnati, Kentucky fans of Survivor, do not miss this. It's going to be super fun. Always a great time. Free event, Pinball Garage, Hamilton, Ohio. And come say hi to Johnny and I. Get some photos with us. This COVID was crazy the past couple of years, and everyone was cooped up in their house. And I've been going to a lot of concerts and doing a lot of shit, Dan. So it's always a good time just to kind of get out and be with other people that all love Survivor. I mean, you've been to some of these viewing parties.
Yeah, I was the first live event I was at was one of Fairplay's, and this was before I was even a patron of the podcast. It's kind of, I went there, I had a ton of fun. It's how I became a patron, and a few years later ended up here. So, but it's a lot of fun because you love Survivor, and I think one of the things that's not hard but different is, especially if you're not big in the online forums and stuff like that, there's things that are happening on Survivor and it's like I just want to talk about this, but maybe you don't have a ton of people in your life that are diehard fans like you may be. Trust me, they're there, and plenty of them there. You can have all the conversations they want, and then especially with like the castaways, you can ask them anything, they're going to answer it. Every castaway that I've talked to at the different live events I've been at have been great. Can't recommend it enough.
It's super fun. And Johnny, he's the biggest villain in reality TV history, but Johnny's a good guy. He's funny, he's over the top, and he'll take pictures with you, and we do trivia and give away buffs. So it's going to be a great time. Johnny does a really good job with these events, and to have it in Hamilton, Ohio at Pinball Garage, our friend Brad is the one who owns it. It's cool. It's a pinball barcade. So there's tons of pinball stuff. There's a food truck there. So it's going to be a great time. So join us.
If you don't think that Johnny cares about this and you're so wrong. I was with him at the one in Durham where we're waiting last minute because he's supposed to get the shipment of buffs in and ended up not showing up. And so I'm hanging out at his house with him and we're waiting for him. They don't come. And he's mad scrambling, to make sure that he can find all the buffs that he has laying around. Like I know It was you remember the Reality NSFW buffs that he had printed?
Yep,
It was the one that he had saved, set aside for himself, that he's like, this is mine. He knew he didn't have enough. He gave up his own buff for, his own podcast network that he created, because he wanted to make sure that, the fans got exactly what they were paying for.
Well, maybe I should I should probably sell my Reality NSFW buff to Fairplay, since he doesn't have one now.
I think he could get them for a decent amount of money.
Yeah, that's hilarious. So going into the immunity challenge, this is one of Johnny's favorites, like over something, under something. But it's not necessarily or under puzzle. It's basically you have to go over some obstacles, then you have to go untie 4 planks at a time that essentially are a puzzle in itself, because you have to build your ladder out of the pieces, make your way up to the top, and then the final part is one of these just balancing labyrinth type things where you have a ball and you have to
table maze.
Yes, table maze. And so I can't wait for Vexel Puzzles. I guarantee is going to make one of these. I have a bunch of them, and they're super fun. And I was telling my kids tonight, like, I think I'd be really good at this table maze puzzle, because I have one that's like a snake that you put this little marble on, and I can do it on my table. I can do it every time. I haven't done it in a while, but I can do it pretty much every time. It's just, you got to be very patient and not get flustered or lose concentration. So Omer actually is leading in this challenge, which honestly I thought Jonathan's gonna be leading this thing the whole time. But yeah, Omer's in the lead. Then Lindsay takes the lead. And Lindsay is a freaking badass. Like, that chick, you can tell she works out. She's got a fucking great body. Very prepared for the game of Survivor. Like, she's extremely fit. One of the most fit, like kind of like a Sarah Lacina muscular kind of build, which is badass for this game, because this game is hard. So we see toward, we get to the puzzle maze, like, and it's between basically Jonathan and Lindsay. And it is pretty crazy because they're both very close in certain parts of the table maze where their ball is like at the same exact fucking spot. Mm-hmm. So you get 2 balls in. The first one, you do the closest to you. That was a rule. And then you do the farther one last. And Jonathan almost has it. It kind of went in the spot and then fell out. He's like, fuck. And then Lindsay wins. So Lindsay, she's, like I said, even though Jonathan's this like challenge beast, Lindsay has proven that she's a challenge beast just as much as he is, especially this late in the game. She's killing it.
Yeah, she's won just as many challenges as Jonathan has. They each have 2. And the one thing I just want to point out, because, you get a lot of people, in this 41 and 42 saying that, it's so much harder because of, no food and, yada, yada, yada. The one thing I did notice is, so at the staircase portion where, you have to match it up and with the different shapes.
Yeah.
They would, I think it was 4 at a time that they would pull off.
Yes.
And they were allowed to take all 4 with them at a time. Where I remember when this first started showing up, I think somewhere around, like the 20th season, somewhere in there, you weren't allowed to take all the puzzle pieces with you. Like, it was more about the memory of it, is I have to get this one right because I can only take one up with me at a time. So it made it more difficult as you got to the top. So I just kind of want to knock that.
No, and
this
honestly,
is harder than ever.
Honestly, it's interesting because we're seeing recycled challenges, and that's one thing. It's like it'd be nice to see some different stuff. That's why I like Australian Survivor, because we're seeing different challenges. It's like we're always in Fiji, seeing a lot of the same stuff, seeing a lot of the same twists and stuff. So I'm hoping like they switch it up. And I know this was all done during the height of COVID. We're lucky that we even had Survivor, right? We obviously didn't get the typical family visits during these 2 seasons of Survivor, which I missed. I really like the family visits. We got a little taste of stuff, but nothing like the true family visits. I hope that returns for season 43 that they're probably filming right now. So Jonathan's a target. Lindsay wants Jonathan out, but Mike wants a backup plan, like kind of like, okay, like what else can we do? Lindsay does not want to play her idol, as we spoke about, because she's afraid it's going to go back in play, which I think is stupid based off the fact that this is an amulet idol, not just something that she found like in a tree or whatever. And her number one person is Omer. And I don't know. What do you think? Like, what is the mindset of Lindsay here? Like, what is the psychology behind it?
I just don't quite get it. I think part of it had to be that she knew she was safe, but I don't get why Omer wouldn't push for it a little bit more. And maybe he did and we didn't see it. But I don't know, because I mean, we've seen people that get to the end and they've tried to show off like, oh, I had all these, trinkets and stuff like that, but I didn't need them. And that's never worked out for someone, where I feel like it's just a lot safer, where you've seen, people at the final 5 that it's just like, hey, I don't need this, but I'm just going to play it because I'm not going to let anything, wonky plan completely derail my game. So if it's the last time you can use it, why not? I don't see any downside in it.
So do you think that this is a major game flaw in Omer's game for not saying, Lindsay, like, you have immunity, like, you gotta give me your idol. Like, let's just do damage control. If you're afraid that it's going to go back into play, let's just keep an eye on everybody. Like, you have to, like, make me safe, because Omer is not safe. It's not like Omer has an idol or an advantage that can save him. Knowing that she has one, like, that's just insane to me. If I'm Omer, I'm going to be like, please, Lindsay, I know you are afraid that if you use the idol, that it's going to go back into play and someone's going to find it. But we have to, like, it's the risk. Like, I could go home potentially. Like, this is deep into the game. Like, why doesn't she do it? It's kind of crazy.
Especially when you break it down and you look at it. So if they got their way, they played it, and it ends up being, say, I guess they would have had a revote, but say that they got their way and it was Jonathan who goes home. Look who's left. They have the 2 of them. What has Romeo done all season? Like, they talk about how he doesn't leave the camp. So do you think he's going to be out there looking for idols? Probably not. Mike already has one. So why would he be going out there looking for a second one? Like, there's really not a large benefit. So it would come down to the 2 of them and Marianne. And obviously, Marianne's found 2, and she has the one they don't know about. But you think, hey, we can eliminate 2 people that I feel pretty confident either Mike's won't look. Romeo, what have we seen that he would? And so if there are going to be people that's going to be looking for it, we have, we cover 2/3 of that.
Yeah. No, that's common sense. That there is a big flaw in Omer and Lindsay's game here. And I bet you Omer's kicking himself in the ass, and I'm sure Lindsay is as well. So Marianne wants to make a move to take out Omer. She wants to use her extra vote. She is like, look, this is my time to actually show that I'm playing the game. She talks to Mike about Omer. Mike is like Mike is like real, like, I don't know. People just don't seem to be super down with Marianne's plan. I don't know if it's because they think Marianne's like not smart or what, but I think Marianne is very smart in this. And a lot of people have shot down some of her ideas in the past. And props to Marianne for continuing to march forward to try to make, shit happens. Because, we know Mike wants to vote out Romeo. So, which I get it, but I also think, like, if Romeo's in a final tribal, what's his case to the jury going to be? Nothing.
Yeah. And especially now, I think if you want a winning formula to, give yourself the best odds, I think you're better off playing like a Marianne than you are an Omer, because when's the last time that we saw someone control every vote starting at the merge and then actually make it all the way to the end? It's just so unheard of that you almost have to lay low. Like, obviously you want to make sure that you stay safe, but hey, I got to wait more till the last minute, because ever since all this resume talk comes up, if you start dictating things too early, it's okay, you're the biggest threat, you got to go.
Yeah. Yeah. This is where it gets tricky. Marianne tells Romeo about the extra votes. So Marianne is really pushing the whole Omer deal at this point. But Mike and John really want Romeo, and we know that we saw in the past Jonathan, like when Lindsay was trying to talk strategy, and he's like, no, you're not listening. Like, I was like, man, are they going to be open-minded enough to go with Marianne's plan, or are they not? And then I was also like, what happened to, I remember like a few episodes ago, there was this like failed, like all guys alliance. Whatever happened to that shit? Because they're like,
for 17 seconds.
Yeah, it did. That was like the worst alliance ever. So going into this tribal, I think it's exciting because you have Jonathan, who, Lindsay wants out because she, he's in her way as far as potentially the biggest threat for winning immunity. Romeo's on the table. Marianne wants this plan to go with Omer. And there's all these different idols and advantages. And this is the last night you can play shot in the dark in the game, thankfully, because I could care less about shot in the dark. So we go into tribal council. It's pouring the fucking rain. And if for those that don't get it, it's like, it's fucking cold when it's raining out there. Even on a tropical island, it's freezing. I was in the Philippines when it rained. It sucks. So raining at tribal council, you see what you see on TV, but tribals usually last a couple hours. So much shit goes on that they don't show and they don't edit into the show. But you're there for a very long time. Just peek behind the curtain. And if you want to see other peek behind the curtain, if you want to support this podcast, become a patron. We do a weekly Q&A. We do Australian Survivor coverage. It's a big, cool family of Survivor lovers. And if you don't like it, Johnny will give your money back. It's adfreeNSFW.com. There's a bunch of different tiers. You get autographed pictures and stuff. But yeah, Johnny and I, we've been doing this podcast for a long time. And the patron group has been super fun. I mean, Dan, as you talked about, like you, Zach Hacker, Alex Trias, Lauren, so many people that are part of the Reality NSFW podcast network have been patrons, and we've all become a big like friends and family through this and through COVID and shit like that. It really helped. I mean, even me, it's like, wow, I look forward to talking shit on the podcast on the Patreon side every week, because it's an outlet. So yes, if you like what we're doing, the best way to support the podcast is adfreeNSFW.com, become a patron. Like I said, back at Tribal Council, Jeff asks kind of like Romeo, like about how things are going. Romeo says like the dynamics are changing. He's saying like, you got to look now what the best odds of winning are. You got to see like your long game, your end game, and kind of Lindsay agrees with this, but then Omer completely disagrees with this. Omer is like, look, we're playing this game. It's a quick paced game. Motherfuckers were playing the long game of and thinking down the road from a long time ago. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, I think it's something where it gives, I think it's another kind of, check mark for Marianne, that as she can kind of play this middle right here, and if she can gain a side, why not go with the Mike and Jonathan side? Because, Romeo is going to be there. He's going to go to the end. And you'd think, all right, eventually Jonathan and Mike probably aren't going to want to go against each other when it comes to it. Mm-hmm. So why not go to that side where it increases your odds of winning rather than going to probably coming into this episode, Omar was the clear favorite, and I think Lindsay was pretty high up on that list as well. So I think that's just another thing that I want to give Marianne credit for. But yeah, I think once you get to that 6, it's as much as you want to say, oh, I'm living day by day. I don't understand how you couldn't be at the final 6 thinking, what's my path? Like, I'm 3 days away or whatever it may be. Like,
you got to be thinking that. Totally.
How do I win this game?
Yeah, and it's crazy because, yeah, like you said, shit, Omer was in a good spot, and then you're like after like Lindsay's like last week when she did the whole fucking whatever that was called, the do or die thing, and she survived. I'm like, shit, dude, Lindsay could easily win it. And I love Lindsay. I thought she could win this fucking game. She's like, look, I fucking made it through this. I beat all the odds. I beat the biggest challenge threat in this fucking game, Jonathan, in multiple immunities. I survived the do or die twist. She has a good resume, but that's how it's crazy how this game is, because Marianne is now coming up, in the final innings as making fucking moves that build her resume and that you can respect. Omer disagrees that people have been playing this. He said people have been playing the long-term game all along. Lindsay, who has immunity and also another immunity idol, the amulet, she feels confident in tonight's vote. And Omer makes a comment saying, I am survivor confident, which, man, that was kind of a red flag when he said that. I'm like, ugh, like, that's a weird thing to say. Is that foreshadowing your demise? And yeah, we basically see a beautiful thing happen. To me, this is exciting. My wife loved this fucking tribal. Last tribal was all, even though I hate the fucking do or die thing, from a viewer standpoint, it was exciting last week. Another exciting tribal this week, and I'm excited to see the finale. But yeah, the thing is, Marianne plays her extra vote, and Lindsay does not play her amulet turned idol for Omer, and Omer goes home. And when the name was read, when Probst was like, Omer, you saw Omer like freaking out and shit, and he was like smiling. And I think he respected like the fact, because he loves Survivor, like Hai did, like, dude, you fucking got me. And Marianne's like, yep, I did that. I think in the moment he was probably like, wow, that was fucking crazy. But I think like 5 minutes into being at Ponderosa with the rest of the fucking jury, he's probably like, this sucks. Like, I was this close. If only I would have fucking convinced Lindsay to give me her idol. That was so stupid. And I know Lindsay is now like, shit, my game is fucking blown up now. And so the tables are turned. Marianne,
yeah, I mean, if you're Lindsay, you have to win. Like, I don't think she really has any other. Now, luckily, it seems like every challenge in the world for, the past month has come down to her and Jonathan, and she's won 2, he's won 2, but
right
at this point, like, it's a huge hit to her game.
It is. So props to Marianne, especially with just pulling that off is pretty cool, because we all think that Marianne, like some people might have thought she was annoying of how like positive and upbeat she is. She's been an entertaining ray of sunlight throughout this whole season. She's different than any other character that I've ever seen on Survivor. There's just something about her, the positivity, and now realizing like, look, I need to do shit I'm not just going to sit here and make it to the end of the game and get no votes. I want to be able to say that I've made moves. And Marianne, tonight, you made a strategic move, and 2 very smart players, as in Lindsay and Omer, you guys made a fatal mistake, but love the episode.
Yeah, and hats off to her, because I mean, you have kind of the other side of it where, when things aren't going your way, you have Romeo that it almost seems like he's just, okay, I'm going to, we don't ever see him do too much.
Right.
And so major props to Marianne for, hey, I've been pitching out these ideas, they keep getting shot down, batted away, whatever that may be, but I'm not going to stop trying. And I think maybe that's something that you need to pay attention for, is even if things aren't going your way, don't rule out someone that's always out there that isn't giving up and that's constantly trying, because you never know when those stars are going to align, and they did for tonight.
Well, going into the finale, Dan, based off of who we have left, who's your prediction to be the sole survivor? Do you have a winner in mind? I know it's a difficult question.
Yeah, going into the episode, I probably would have said Lindsay, but I can't after what just happened. I'm going to toss up between Marianne and Mike. I'm going to lean, if Omer is how we see it, he respects the game, and he's going to talk about it at Ponderosa, and kind of not take it personal, being like, oh, you got me. I think you have to give the edge to Marianne, but I also wouldn't be shocked if Mike is able to find his way there, that he could win as well.
Wow. For me, it's so there's going to be a fire making challenge, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think I put my money on, if Lindsay, let's say, is in a fire making challenge somehow, I think Lindsay is probably someone that can make fire. She's a badass. I don't think Marianne might be. I don't know if she'd be able to make fire as well. So that, thinking about that potential scenario is kind of crazy. I don't think Jonathan has a chance to win based off of who he's playing with. I don't think Romeo has a chance of winning. So I think it's either going to be Mike, Lindsay, or Marianne. Oh God.
Yeah, because we spent all this time praising Marianne, but Lindsay still has played a pretty good game, and if she's able to win another immunity challenge and then win fire, that's also tough to argue against.
It is. I'm just I would like to, like I said, as long as it's not Romeo, I'm fine with anyone winning the game. I'm gonna say I want to vote Lindsay. Because okay. I think she has a good chance of winning another individual immunity, because we've seen her win, and she gives Jonathan a run for his money. And if she was into a fire making, for example, potential scenario, I think she wins fire making. And I think she has a good resume to win the game. Physical, strategic. I made it through the do or die. I beat the biggest challenge person in Survivor history, like one of the most beast mode people, Jonathan. I was able to beat him. But yeah, we'll see. It's crazy, but I cannot wait until the Survivor premiere of 42. I can't even believe it's over with already. Time has been flying. So come join Johnny Fairplay and myself for the free event, Pinball Garage, Hamilton, Ohio, next week for the finale. Yes, Johnny and I will be there amongst other survivors. Come watch the show with us and have a blast. Pinball Garage, Hamilton, Ohio, the Survivor finale. And Dan, thank you very much for doing the podcast with me tonight. I know the listeners, you've been getting different people doing the pod, which I think is actually a cool thing. Different perspectives, because at the end of the day, we are all just having conversations about the show that we love. I just so happen to get to be lucky enough to play the game as a dream come true. So Dan, you were a patron and you're like, shit, 2 years later, I'm podcasting now on the Reality NSFW network with Johnny. I feel the same way. I played Survivor, and it's funny because I grew up watching Johnny Fairplay, and it's wow, it's I did not win Survivor, but I'm able to talk about Survivor every week with my friend Johnny, and such a great community this Survivor community is. And through our Reality NSFW network, we do Big Brother coverage. We do the challenge coverage. We do on the Patreon side, we do Australian Survivor and other things. And it's just really fun. We have a lot of great people involved, and you all are why I keep doing this. I love you all. And we will see you all next week for the finale, which I cannot wait. I'm excited. At first this season, I was like, I don't know. Like, is this season going to be like 41? But I love it. And the last half of, like, I was like, I don't know. This is not as good as Australian Survivor, but I'm the last half of the season. I mean, even Micah, one of our patrons, is like, I was wrong. I was dogging some shit, and I turned myself around. We are thoroughly entertained. So props anyone of season 42 listening. We love you. This is all in great fun, and we can't wait to see how this ends. And we'll see you next week. Love you all. Cheers.
See ya.
And for more Reality NSFW content, visit adfreeNSFW.com.